Today I'm going to talk about three different types of fuel quantity systems. We're also going to touch on fuel temperature and fuel pressure on the Boeing 737. So everyone's familiar with this airplane. This is the Flybaby that we have at the Cincinnati State Hangar. And let me ask you this. How does the pilot know how much fuel is in this airplane? How does that quantity indication system work? Well, it couldn't be any easier. Let's take a look at the fuel quantity indication system for the Flybaby. This is fall off a log simple. It's a cork that goes, there's a hole in the gas cap, there's a piece of wire with a cork on it, and whatever the fluid level is in the tank, that cork will float, and the indicator is out the top. So if the pilot sees the indicator's way up there, his tank is full. As he burns down fuel, that gets shorter and shorter because the cork goes down. And when that wire is down touching the very bottom, then you better be looking for a place to land. That is the mechanical indicator. So the type of indicator it is, it's mechanical. The actuation system, the way it works is a cork and it floats. Couldn't be any simpler. There it is there. You can see a better picture. It goes right down in the gas tank. This is the Aranca that we have at Cincinnati State. It has the same. It is a forward gas tank, and this forward gas tank has, this is a very old airplane. This is a 1939, and the Aranca came out with some modifications to their fuel tanks later on. This is the cockpit of a newer Aranca. Think about 1946. Up there by the compass, there is this guy here. That is the fuel tank that's underneath the dashboard and behind there. And this is the fuel tank indicator for that system. So that looks like this. And that screws into the tank, and there's a ball there, and the ball floats. Same type of deal as the cork. Fall off a log simple. Now we're going to move to some other indication systems. This is the commander, and this is actually fuel pressure on the commander. And the way that works is there's this thing, it's a fuel pressure sensor, and it sends a electronic signal to the cockpit and tells us, so when we turn on the boost pump and it pressurizes the fuel system, this guy moves and he sends an electrical signal up to the cockpit, and that moves a gauge. So that's the commander. Now let's talk about the Cessna 320. So on the Cessna 320, inside the fuel tank, this is for measuring how much fuel you have, fuel quantity. Inside the fuel tank is this type of thing. It's a float. Similar to our cork float, this is in the sidewall of the tank, and as the tank fills up, this float floats and moves this arm. Now down inside this arm, there is some mechanical controls, looks like this, and it moves a resistor. There's an arm and there's a resistor circuit built into this, and it measures, so as this moves, it changes the resistance. The electrical system measures the resistance. A wire comes out of this side and goes up to the cockpit, and that gives us a cockpit indication. So the way this works is it's a float, and it is mechanically actuated and electrically through electricity delivers a signal to the cockpit. So I want to talk about fuel measuring sticks. And fuel measuring sticks, this is something that the big airplanes have. So if you have an airplane parked out on the ramp, let's say it's a Boeing 737. This airplane, you want to know how much fuel's in it. You can measure it without even having to turn on power. The airplane could just be sitting there, and these fuel sticks are located all around it. You can't just do it with one stick because the wings have dihedral to them, right? And it's thicker in the middle, and a wing tapers as it goes out to the edge. So you need a clipboard, and what you're going to do is you're going to walk around the airplane, and you're going to let down these fuel sticks. Now this is a fuel stick. So if I take my screwdriver and I give this thing a quarter turn, this stick will pop out and it will come down. It won't come down all the way. There's a magnet up here, and it will float where the top of the fuel is. And so I can read a reading on this, and it'll tell me how much fuel is in the tank. Now to do this, I take my clipboard and I go here, and if you look at this top picture of the wing, you can see there's access doors 1, 4, 6, 8, and 10. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 5 fuel sticks located along this wing. So if I want to know how much gas is in this airplane, how much jet fuel, I'm going to go and I'm going to pull this fuel stick and I'm going to read. It's going to come down part way. I'm going to write down the number on that one. Then I'm going to go to this fuel stick. I'm going to pull it down. I'm going to write down the number on it. Go to that one, go to that one, go to that one. And then I go to the other wing, and if there's any in the center tank, I'm going to take my clipboard and I'm going to add it all up. These are fuel measuring sticks, and you'll see these on the big airplanes. It's nice because if you had an electrical problem, you can go and look and see what is on the airplane. The only thing is you can't do it while you're flying, right? You need a mechanic on a bungee cord to go out there and measure it in flight. And that brings us to fuel quantity indicators. Now here we're showing the cockpit, and in the cockpit we have 3 fuel gauges. Okay, that's great how they work. Well, I don't know. If it's full, you're full of gas. If it's empty, you're empty of gas, right? That's easy. We're done. We're all done. Let's go. No. So the way this works is we got the indicator in the cockpit, and then we have a tank unit. Now these are capacitance fuel probes, and these fuel probes, one of these types of probes, is down inside the fuel tanks, and you have several of them because once again it's a big airplane, it's a long wing, it's tapered, and it's got dihedral to it. So these capacitance measure the capacitance of the electrical capacitance within the fuel tank. So if you remember your airframe electric and your basic electric, we talked about AC systems, we talked about capacitance. Capacitance is kind of like a thing where we're going to look at resistance, we're going to look at impedance, and we're going to look at a couple other things. But it's like resistance, but resistance is only one big element of what this measures. The bottom line is fuel has a certain capacitance, certain resistance. Air has a different capacitance and different resistance. So along this fuel probe, if my fuel level is halfway up, this thing can measure what the capacitance is of the fuel, the capacitance of the air, and calculate how much fuel we got in. In fact, it's very accurate, and that's why we use them on commercial airplanes. So this is a Boeing 737 that we're showing here. And okay, so as we zoom into this, you can see they have a tank unit, what they call a tank unit, and a compensator unit. The compensator unit is going to balance everybody out, but these tank units are going to measure the capacitance. And if we look here, we can see they have several of these. There's the center tank. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 in the center fuel tank, and out in my wing I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I got several of them, as you can see there. So that's a capacitance. That's a capacitance fuel probe. Okay, now we have fuel pressure, and we have fuel pressure switches. These operate pretty much similar to what I showed you in the Commander. Now this one on the 737, the fuel pressure, low pressure, will illuminate if the output of the fuel pump drops below 5 psi. So that's a warning light. That's an idiot light. So you've got a little pressure switch down there, and then that pressure switch activates. It's below 5. You can put another fuel pressure switch in here, and it will illuminate on some boost pumps at 14, some at 16. Now this is going to depend on what airplane you're working on. So these are showing how you run the boost pump, the cockpit controls, and this is showing where the switches are located in the 737. There's a temperature indicating system on the Boeing 737. It has a temperature bulb, and it is a bayonet type bulb. And when your instruments class, you'll probably talk about indicating systems. But what it's going to be is it's going to be something similar to a probably if you remember the Cromel, Lumel, Wheatstone bridge system, this is probably what's called a thermistor type, and it's going to just measure the temperature and send that to the cockpit. So those are the pressure indicating units that we wanted to talk about in week 13, and there you have it.